The sterile scent of antiseptic clung to Sarah, a constant reminder of the battle they were fighting. Not her own battle, not directly, but one that had consumed her life for the past 6 months, the slow, agonizing decline of Michael's mother, Eleanor. Sarah had always liked Eleanor, a woman with a sharp wit hidden beneath a veneer of delicate Southern charm. When the diagnosis of advanced-stage pancreatic cancer came, swift and brutal, Sarah didn't hesitate. Their small family needed her, and Michael, her husband of 7 years, was understandably distraught. Michael, a software engineer with a meticulous mind, was usually the anchor in their relationship. But Eleanor's illness had shaken him to his core. He became withdrawn, his usual easy laughter replaced by a tight-lipped silence. Sarah understood. Watching your parent fade away was a uniquely cruel form of torture, so she took on the lion's share of the caregiving. She learned how to administer medication, how to adjust Eleanor's position in bed to ease her pain, how to coax her to eat, even when nausea gripped her. She slept fitfully on the spare bed in Eleanor's room, her days a relentless cycle of monitoring vital signs, changing bed linens, and offering gentle encouragement. Michael was present physically, but emotionally he seemed miles away. He'd come to the hospital after work, sit by his mother's bedside, sometimes holding her hand, other times just staring out the window. He rarely spoke to Sarah, and when he did, it was usually a clipped question about Eleanor's condition. Sarah tried not to take it personally, attributing his distance to grief. She poured all her energy into Eleanor, finding a strange comfort in the routine, in the small victories like Eleanor, managing a few spoonfuls of soup or a brief moment of lucidity where her old spark would flicker. Their life outside the hospital dwindled to nothing. Their cozy apartment in Austin, usually filled with the aroma of Sarah's cooking and the sound of their shared laughter, felt empty and cold. Their date nights, their weekend hikes in the Texas hills, their quiet evenings spent reading on the couch, all became distant memories. Sarah missed Michael, the warm, loving man she had married. She longed for a comforting hug, a word of appreciation, a simple acknowledgement of the sacrifice she was making. But those moments were rare, like fleeting glimpses of sunshine through a stormy sky. Before we move forward, please take a moment to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next dramatic tale. Your engagement helps us bring more compelling stories like this one to life. Eleanor's condition worsened gradually. The hospital became their second home. Sarah often found herself scrolling through her phone during the quiet hours, catching up on news or connecting with friends online. One evening, while Eleanor was sleeping fitfully, Sarah stumbled upon a news article about how technology was being used to catch cheating spouses. An unsettling feeling prickled at the back of her neck. It wasn't that she suspected Michael, not exactly, but there had been a subtle shift in him, a guardedness in his eyes when he did make eye contact, a quickness to dismiss her concerns. Dismissing it as exhaustion and stress, Sarah tucked the thought away. She had more pressing matters to attend. 2. Eleanor needed her. Michael needed her, even if he wasn't showing it. She would be the strong one, the unwavering support system they both needed during this difficult time. Weeks turned into months. Eleanor's breaths grew shallower, her moments of awareness fewer. The doctors prepared them for the inevitable. Sarah held Eleanor's frail hand as she took her last breath, a quiet release after months of pain. The room felt heavy with grief, the silence amplifying the profound loss. In the days that followed, Sarah focused on supporting Michael through his bereavement. She handled the funeral arrangements, fielded calls from well-meaning relatives, and tried to create a semblance of normalcy in their grief-stricken home. Michael seemed lost, his sadness a palpable presence in the apartment. Sarah held him close, offering what comfort she could, her own grief a dull ache beneath the surface. It was about a week after the funeral that Sarah found it. Michael had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter. She wasn't one to snoop, but the notification that popped up in the corner of the screen caught her eye. a message from someone named Chloe. The message was innocuous enough, just a simple, thinking of you. But something about the sender's name and the heart emoji sent a jolt of unease through her. Curiosity, that relentless human trait, won over her better judgment. She clicked on the message. It opened a chat window in WhatsApp web. Her breath hitched. The messages weren't just from the past few days. They spanned months, starting from the time Eleanor's illness had taken a serious turn. And the content. It wasn't just friendly banter. Missing you so much. This hospital is so depressing. One of Michael's messages read, dated 3 months back. A time when Sarah had been practically living at the hospital. Chloe's reply sent a cold wave of nausea through Sarah. I know, baby, but soon we'll have all the time in the world for us. You're doing such a good job taking care of things. Sarah scrolled further, her heart pounding in her chest. There were messages filled with longing, secret rendezvous, promises of a future together. Pictures of Michael smiling, his arm around a woman with long blonde hair, a woman Sarah had never seen before. The dates on the pictures coincided with nights Michael had supposedly stayed late at work or had gone out for a solo walk to clear his head. The world tilted on its axis. The antiseptic smell of the hospital, the exhaustion that had become her constant companion, Eleanor's frail hand in hers, it all flashed before her eyes. While she had been selflessly caring for his dying mother, sacrificing her time, her energy, her own well-being, Michael had been seeking solace in the arms of another woman. The betrayal was a sharp, agonizing pain, like a knife twisting in, an open wound. She didn't confront him immediately. She couldn't. The shock was too profound, the hurt too deep. She closed the laptop, her hands trembling, and walked away, feeling numb. Over the next few days, she observed him, her heart a leaden weight in her chest. He acted as if nothing was wrong, grieving Eleanor, leaning on Sarah for support. The hypocrisy was sickening. The grief for her marriage began to overshadow the grief for Eleanor. The love she had felt for Michael, the trust she had placed in him, shattered into a million pieces, leaving behind a sharp, jagged emptiness. Revenge, a cold, insidious seed, began to sprout in her heart. It wasn't a sudden desire, but a slow, deliberate hardening, a resolve to make him pay for his deceit. Sarah was a meticulous planner, a trait that had served her well in her career as a project manager. She channeled that same meticulousness into plotting her revenge. She knew she couldn't lash out in anger, couldn't engage in a shouting match or a public confrontation. That wasn't her style. Her revenge had to be calculated, precise, and ultimately devastating. First, she needed information. Quietly, subtly, she started gathering details about Chloe. A few discreet searches on social media revealed her full name, Chloe Davis, her profession as a real estate agent, and her general lifestyle. She seemed to enjoy expensive restaurants, exotic vacations, and flaunting her apparent success online. Next, Sarah turned her attention to their finances. She had always been involved in their household budgeting, but Michael had handled most of their investments. Now, she meticulously reviewed their bank statements, their investment portfolios, their retirement accounts. She discovered a joint savings account they had opened for a down payment on a larger house, a dream they had often discussed. The balance was a substantial $150,000. With the knowledge of his infidelity and their shared assets, Sarah consulted a lawyer. She met with Ms. Eleanor Vance, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney specializing in family law. Sarah laid out her situation, providing copies of the WhatsApp messages and the photographs as evidence of Michael's affair. Ms. Vance listened intently, her expression unwavering. In Texas, adultery can be considered as a factor in a divorce, although Texas is a community property state, she explained. This means that assets acquired during the marriage are generally divided equally. However, evidence of adultery can sometimes influence the court's decision, particularly regarding the division of property. Sarah's primary goal wasn't just a fair division of assets. She wanted to hit Michael where it would hurt the most: his carefully constructed life, his reputation, and his future with Chloe. Armed with legal counsel, Sarah began to subtly distance herself from Michael. She was polite, but emotionally detached. She stopped initiating conversations about their future and became increasingly preoccupied with work. Michael, still consumed by his grief and perhaps feeling a subconscious guilt, didn't seem to notice the subtle shift. The day Sarah decided to execute her plan, she woke up with a sense of cold determination. She spent the morning meticulously organizing documents. In the afternoon, she called Michael at work. "Honey," she said, her voice carefully neutral, "could you come home early? I think we need to talk." Michael sounded surprised, but agreed. When he arrived, Sarah was waiting for him in the living room, a stack of papers on the coffee table. "Michael," she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "I know about Chloe." The color drained from his face. His eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed in apprehension. He tried to deny it, to stammer out excuses, but Sarah held up her hand, silencing him. "I saw the messages, Michael. I saw the pictures. I know everything." Her voice was calm, devoid of anger, which seemed to unnerve him even more. She then proceeded to lay out her plan, her words precise and deliberate. "I've consulted with a lawyer. I know my rights. I want a divorce." Michael finally found, his voice a desperate plea. "Sarah, please, It was a mistake. I was grieving. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough for you to lie to me for months, Michael. It meant enough for you to betray my trust while I was caring for your mother." Her voice remained steady, but the underlying pain was palpable. "I'm not going to fight you on the divorce, Michael, but I have certain demands." She slid a document across the coffee table. It was a prenuptial agreement drafted by her lawyer. Michael picked it up, his eyes scanning the contents. His face grew increasingly pale. The agreement stipulated that Sarah would receive not only her fair share of the community property, but also a significant portion of Michael's premarital assets as compensation for his infidelity and the emotional distress it had caused. It also included a clause that would prevent him from contesting the terms or speaking negatively about Sarah publicly. This is outrageous, Sarah," he exclaimed, his voice rising in anger. "Is it?" Sarah countered, her gaze unwavering. "Is it more outrageous than what you did to me? While I was sacrificing everything for your family, you were building a secret life with another woman. Consider this the price you have to pay for your betrayal." Michael argued, pleaded, tried to negotiate. But Sarah stood firm. She had the evidence, the legal backing, and the unwavering resolve to see her plan through. She also had another card up her sleeve. "And there's one more thing, Michael," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "I've also informed Chloe's employer about our affair. As a real estate agent, her reputation is everything. I've provided them with all the details." Michael's face crumpled. He knew what that meant. Chloe, with her carefully curated online persona and her ambitious career, would be devastated by the exposure. Sarah watched his despair with a detached sense of satisfaction. It wasn't bringing Eleanor back, and it wasn't erasing the pain of his betrayal, but it was a start. It was a way to reclaim her power, to make him face the consequences of his actions. The divorce was finalized within a few months. Michael, facing the prospect of a costly legal battle and the ruin of his reputation, reluctantly agreed to Sarah's terms. He moved out of their apartment, leaving behind the ghosts of their shared past. Sarah sold the apartment and used her share of the proceeds, along with the additional settlement from Michael, to start her own consulting business. She focused on her work, pouring her energy into building a new life for herself. It wasn't easy. The scars of Michael's betrayal ran deep. There were days when the loneliness felt overwhelming, when the memories of their happier times would surface, sharp and poignant. But Sarah was resilient. She surrounded herself with supportive friends, rediscovered old hobbies, and slowly began to heal. As for Chloe, Sarah occasionally saw her updates on social media. Her once flourishing real estate career had taken a nosedive. There were rumors of her being ostracized by her colleagues and losing several high-profile clients. The glamorous vacations and expensive dinners seemed to have stopped. One evening, Sarah received an unexpected email from Chloe. It was a long, rambling message filled with anger and resentment. Chloe blamed Sarah for ruining her life, for exposing her affair, for taking Michael away from her. Sarah read the email with a sense of detached amusement. Chloe, the woman who had knowingly entered into an affair with a married man, was now playing the victim. Sarah didn't reply. She didn't feel the need to justify her actions or engage in a futile argument. Time passed. Sarah's business thrived. She found joy in her independence and the freedom to pursue her own dreams. One day she received news through a mutual acquaintance that Michael and Chloe had broken up. Apparently, the foundation of their relationship, built on deceit and betrayal, couldn't withstand the pressures of reality. Michael had lost his wife, his savings, and his reputation. Chloe had lost her career and her relationship. Sarah felt a pang of something that might have been pity, but it quickly faded. They had both made their choices, and they were now living with the consequences. Sarah had lost her marriage, the future she had envisioned, and the man she thought she knew. But in the process of seeking revenge, she had also found something else. Her own strength, her own resilience, and the unwavering belief in her own worth. She had emerged from the ashes of betrayal, not as a victim, but as a survivor, ready to build a new and fulfilling life on her own terms. The revenge wasn't about inflicting pain. It was about reclaiming her life and ensuring she would never be taken for granted again. The quiet satisfaction she felt wasn't malicious. It was the quiet triumph of a woman who had been wronged and had the courage and intellect to right the scales of justice in her own way.